start these 5 wide receivers in week 1. Number 1 on the list is Chris Godwin. Last year's WR28 has been trending the wrong way over the last couple of years. In 2022, he finished as a WR19, and in 2021, he finished as a WR15. But with a great matchup against Washington in week 1, he has a chance to reverse the trend. Washington gave up the most passing yards per game last year with a little bit over 260, and with Dan Quinn taking over the team, it's going to take a little time for them to gel. They no longer have Chase Young or Montez Sweat, so they're really young, and I'm expecting them to have some growing pains. I think this is lining up to be a pass-heavy game script for the Bucs. Baker Mayfield had the 7th most passing attempts in the league last year, and I don't see that changing. While the Bucs did draft Bucky Irving and are probably going to try to emphasize the run a bit more, I don't think that's possible. Rachaad White only averaged 3.7 yards per carry last year, and this team is pretty invested in their receiving core behind Mike Evans, Chris Godwin obviously, Cade Otton, and newly drafted Jalen McMillan. So while Godwin did end up as the WR28, all was not lost. He still went over 1,000 yards and got nearly 8 targets per game. And I think this year he'll improve in that touchdown department. Last year he only finished with 2, so he's bound for some positive regression. I also love the vibe around Godwin. Dave Canales is now the head coach of the Panthers, and Liam Cohen is the new offensive coordinator of the Bucs, and he himself said he's expecting big things for Godwin. I think you can fire up Godwin as a WR2 this week with some possible upside. Number 2 on the list is Davante Adams. Last year was an up and down year for Adams, but a lot of that was out of his control. Between a questionable quarterbacking situation and a dysfunctional coaching staff to start the year, Adams was not able to produce at the level that we've all grown accustomed to. But I think in week 1, he gets off to the right foot. This week he gets the Chargers, who allowed the 4th most passing yards per game last season, right around 250. And even though Gardner Minshew isn't the most elite quarterback, he's proven that he can still help wide receivers have a strong finish. Last year in Indianapolis, Michael Pittman finished as the WR13 overall, only 3 spots behind Davante Adams, and they both averaged the same amount of PPR points per game. 15.6. Minshew also showed that he likes to lock on to one guy. Last year, Pittman had 156 targets, 58 more than the next closest receiver on the team. So I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the same treatment for Adams. I think Adams gets back to his high volume ways this week and ends up as a low-end WR1. Number 3 on the list is Amari Cooper. Who doesn't love a good revenge game? This week, Cooper goes up against his old team in the Dallas Cowboys, and I think he has a chance to make a splash. Last year in games with Deshaun Watson, he had nearly 7 targets, 73 yards, and had almost 1/3 of a touchdown per game. And I'm expecting a pass-heavy game script from this team. I know they're usually near the top in terms of rushing attempts, but Nick Chubb is still out. They're going to have to rely on Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them in some more passing situations than normal. I'm not expecting Jerry Jeudy or Elijah Moore to eat into his workload too much. At this point, Cooper's biggest competition is probably David Njoku. But even so, Cooper comes into this year with a ton of momentum. He finished last year on a very high note, and yes, it was with Joe Flacco, but I still think he's one of the best receivers in the game. What I also like about Cooper's chances to do well this week outside of the revenge factor is the fact that Dallas's secondary isn't what it once was. Deron Bland is on IR with a stress fracture, Trayvon Diggs is working his way back from an ACL, and Stephon Gilmore is now on the Vikings. Dan Quinn is no longer in town. He's now the head coach of the Commanders, so as much as I love Mike Zimmer, he's not going to be nearly as aggressive as Dan Quinn was. I think Cooper is a solid WR2 this week, especially in PPR. It wouldn't shock me to see him get upwards of 10 targets. Number 4 on the list is Jalen Waddle. While Waddle's already pretty much a must-start in most leagues, I think he has some WR1 potential this week. The Miami Dolphins are thin at receiver. Both River Craycraft and Odell Beckham Jr. are slated to miss the first 4 games, and behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, there's only Braxton Berrios. So these 2 guys are going to get all the work they can handle. And even Hill is ailing a bit. He's dealt with a thumb injury, he's declared himself healthy, and he is practicing, but that may limit him a little bit. And let's not forget that he's also 30 years old. I'm not expecting some magic drop-off, but they may start to lean into Waddle a bit more. They did just give him a 3-year, $84 million extension, and he's equally as speedy. This week, the Dolphins get Jacksonville, who allowed the 26th most passing yards per game last year with nearly 240 per contest, and I'm expecting this game to be a high-scoring affair. As we've already seen in Waddle's short career, he doesn't even need that many looks. He can house a screen or a slant and score points in a hurry. Number 5 on the list is DK Metcalf. Even though Metcalf is going to be locked up with All-Pro corner Pat Surtain, I still like his prospects, mainly because Tyler Lockett is ailing. He's dealing with a thigh issue that's limited him in practice, and even if he suits up, he may be out there as a decoy. I know they also have Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he's still a little bit raw. I'm expecting his role to grow this year, but Metcalf is still the alpha in this receiving room. Geno Smith is also in year 2 of a 3-year deal, and he's in kind of that prove-it window. The Hawks just traded for Sam Howell, and if Smith has a year similar to last, he may be out the door. At this point, I think Smith's going to do everything he can to prove that he's worthy of an extension, and that should only benefit Metcalf. The Seahawks' new OC Ryan Grubb has indicated that they plan to run the ball a lot more than they have in the past, which is a big shift away from how Shane Waldron used to run the offense. But I think even if they try to do that, they have too talented of a receiving core to really go away from the passing game that much. And this week would be a great week to tap into the passing game. The Denver Broncos allowed the 23rd most passing yards per game last year, and I think it's safe to fire up Metcalf as a solid WR2 with some upside. Those are 5 must-start wide receivers for week 1. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know which receivers you think we should start in the comments below.